Vanessa smirked, sipping her wine with the confidence of someone who believed they had the world wrapped around their finger. Her manicured nails traced lazy circles on the rim of the glass, a small, indulgent smile playing on her lips as she leaned back in her chair. "You're being paranoid," she laughed, her voice smooth, dismissive. "Honestly, Ethan, I don't know where you get these ideas." I didn't argue. I didn't react. I just watched. That was always my advantage, patience. Vanessa thrived on control. She knew exactly how to manipulate a situation, how to twist the truth until it wrapped around her like a silk scarf. The way she spoke, the way she touched my hand reassuringly, it was all an act. A perfectly rehearsed performance, designed to make me question myself. But she had no idea that I had already stopped questioning anything. 3 weeks ago, I was still unsure, still teetering between suspicion and self-doubt. The late nights, the secretive texting, the sudden business trips that didn't add up, I had noticed it all. But she was careful, so careful, gaslighting me just enough to make me hesitate. Then I found the first crack in her perfect facade. A charge on her credit card. A luxury hotel I had never been to, a place she had no reason to be at first. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was for a friend. Maybe there was some logical explanation. Then 2 days later, I saw her car parked outside that same hotel. That was the moment I knew, but I didn't confront her. Confrontation was pointless when dealing with a liar. Instead, I did what I do best. I watched. I waited. I gathered every piece of evidence, ensuring that when I struck, there would be no escape. Now, as she sat across from me, bathed in the warm glow of candlelight, she had no idea that her entire world was about to crumble. The restaurant was elegant, upscale, the kind of place where people came to celebrate love, success, milestones. Vanessa believed this was a night about her birthday, her moment, a grand celebration of the life she had built, the friends who adored her, the man who worshipped her. She had no idea the stage had been set for something else entirely. As the waiter poured another glass of wine, she glanced around the table, taking in the people who had gathered for her. Her parents smiling with pride, her best friends laughing, raising their glasses in her honor, colleagues, acquaintances, all here to celebrate her. I watched the way she basked in their attention, completely unaware that within minutes they would all see her for who she really was. Vanessa lifted her glass. "To love," she purred, looking straight into my eyes. "To trust." I raised my glass, my smile unwavering. "To truth," I said. Then as she closed her eyes and made a wish, I pressed play. The screen behind her flickered to life, the soft glow illuminating the stunned faces around the table. The video began playing, grainy but clear enough to show her stepping into that hotel. Her arm wrapped around Lucas, her lips finding his in a kiss that left no room for doubt. Gasps filled the room. A fork clattered onto a plate. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Vanessa's eyes snapped open, her smile frozen in place for half a second before it collapsed. Her face drained of color. I leaned in close, just enough for her to hear. "Make a wish," I whispered. Then I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and walked away. As I walked out of the restaurant, leaving Vanessa frozen in shock, the sounds of gasps and whispers faded behind me. I didn't need to turn back to know what was happening. I could already picture the scene. The flickering glow of the video still playing, her friends and family staring, their eyes widening with every damning frame. The weight of the moment pressed down on her. She had spent years perfecting the art of control, always one step ahead, always dictating the narrative. But now she was the one trapped, exposed, powerless. Outside, the crisp night air hit me, cool against my skin, refreshing in a way I hadn't felt in months. The tension that had coiled around me, the exhaustion of pretending, of playing the role of the clueless boyfriend, all began to unravel. I exhaled slowly, closing my eyes for a brief moment. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about reclaiming my dignity. Vanessa had counted on my silence, on my inability to act. She had believed, like so many others before her, that love would make me weak. She had never understood that love had nothing to do with this. Love had died the moment I confirmed the truth. And now it was time for consequence. I pulled my phone from my pocket and scrolled through my messages, landing on the one I had sent to Lucas hours earlier. It had been a simple text, a single line that had sealed his fate. "Be there tonight. You won't want to miss this." I had counted on his nature, his arrogance, his ego, his belief that he could charm his way out of anything. If I knew Lucas, and I did, He had been lurking somewhere in that restaurant, just in case Vanessa needed him. And the moment the video had started playing, I knew exactly what he would do. He would run. Cowards always do. I didn't need to see it happen to know the exact sequence of events. The second Vanessa turned to him, looking for help, looking for someone to rescue her from this nightmare, she would find nothing but an empty chair. Lucas would already be halfway out the back door, deleting her number, pretending he had never even met her, because that was the kind of man he was. And Vanessa, she was finally realizing that. I checked the time. I gave it 5 more minutes before my phone would start buzzing. She would call, she would text. At first, she would try to reason with me, try to spin a new story. If that failed, she would shift to guilt, to anger, to desperation. I had rehearsed this moment in my head, imagined all the ways she might try to claw her way back into my good graces, and I had already decided on my response. Silence. The ultimate punishment for someone like Vanessa wasn't screaming, wasn't arguing, wasn't even revenge. It was irrelevance. She thrived on attention, on control, on being the center of everything. And now, she was just another person I had left behind. As I approached my car, I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket, right on time. I glanced at the screen. Vanessa. I let it ring. Seconds later, another vibration, a text message. Then another. Then another. I opened them, scanning the words without emotion. Ethan, please, we need to talk. I can explain everything. Don't do this. Baby, please, you can't just walk away like this. I smirked. She still thought she had some control left. That was the problem with people like Vanessa. They never truly believed they could lose. I slid into the driver's seat, leaning back as I watched the restaurant from the rearview mirror. The night was still unfolding for her, every second stretching endlessly as the reality of her downfall settled in. Her father was probably furious, her mother stunned into silence. Her friends would be torn between shock and satisfaction because deep down everyone loves a scandal when they aren't the ones involved. She would try to salvage what she could, smooth things over, laugh it off, but the truth was undeniable now. It had played out in front of too many people. Reputations don't recover from moments like this. I shifted the car into gear, but before I could pull away, another message appeared on my screen. This one was different. Ethan, I need you. Please don't do this to me. The shift had begun. She wasn't pleading anymore. She was blaming. I almost laughed. Do this to you? As if she hadn't done it to herself, as if I hadn't sat through weeks of lies, through gaslighting, through moments where she looked me in the eyes and swore I was imagining things. Vanessa had never thought about what it would feel like to be on the receiving end of betrayal. But now, in this moment, she understood. And it was only going to get worse for her. Because this wasn't just a bad night. This was the beginning of the end of the life she had so carefully built. The video would spread. It always does. The whispers would follow her into every room, her job, her social circles, her family gatherings. She would become the woman who was exposed, the one who lost everything in one night of brutal, poetic justice. And I was already gone. I pressed down on the accelerator, watching the restaurant fade into the distance in my rearview mirror. The past was behind me. Vanessa could keep calling, keep pleading, keep trying to spin another lie, but she had already made her final mistake. She had underestimated me, and now she would have to live with that for the rest of her life. As I drove away from the restaurant, my grip on the steering wheel tightened, not out of anger, but from the sheer satisfaction of knowing that for once, I was the one in control. I had waited for this moment, played my part with precision, and now Vanessa was left to drown in the wreckage of her own deceit. The city lights blurred past as I turned onto a quieter street, needing a moment to process it all. For months, I had been suffocating under the weight of suspicion, constantly questioning myself while she smiled, lied, and reassured me with kisses that meant nothing. Every night I spent staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was losing my mind, had been leading to this. Now I could finally breathe. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat again. I didn't need to check to know who it was. Vanessa wasn't the type to accept defeat easily. She was probably still at the restaurant, frantically typing out texts, trying to salvage whatever she could. I let it ring, then glanced at the notifications piling up. Ethan, you can't just do this. Talk to me, please. You're making a mistake. The desperation was creeping in now. Before, she had tried to gaslight me, tried to act as if I had imagined it all, but now that her lies had been laid bare for everyone to see, she had lost that power. Still, I knew Vanessa. She wouldn't just fall apart quietly. No, she would strategize, try to flip the script. She was already scrambling, already looking for an angle. But there wasn't one. I had made sure of that. Pulling into my apartment parking lot, I cut the engine and exhaled. The night was quiet now, a stark contrast to the chaos I had left behind. The glow of my phone screen lit up the interior of the car. Another incoming call. I smirked, finally answering, a shaky breath on the other end. Then her voice, raw, barely holding itself together. Please. I let the silence stretch, let her squirm. What exactly do you want, Vanessa? My voice was calm, measured, not angry, not emotional, just detached. She hesitated, and for the first time in a long time, I could tell she didn't know what to say. Vanessa, the queen of control, the master manipulator, was at a loss. You didn't have to do that, she finally said, her voice trembling. Not like that. Not in front of everyone. I almost laughed. The irony was delicious. Not like that? You mean not in a way that exposed you, not in a way that ruined your perfect little image? She inhaled sharply, and I could almost picture her pacing somewhere, one hand in her hair, her mind racing to find the right words. It was a mistake, she said, grasping for the classic excuse. A stupid, meaningless mistake. You and I, we had something real, Ethan. We can fix this. I leaned back in my seat, letting her words hang in the air. This was exactly what I had expected. First denial, then bargaining. You don't get it, do you? I said, my voice eerily calm. This wasn't just a mistake, Vanessa. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is texting the wrong person. What you did, that was a choice. Over and over again, more silence. Then a small, pitiful, I love you. This time, I did laugh. A cold, bitter laugh that held no amusement. Love? You don't love me, Vanessa. You love control. You love comfort. You love knowing that someone is waiting for you while you run around with guys like Lucas. The mere mention of his name was enough to send her spiraling. Lucas means nothing to me, she snapped, the rawness in her voice giving away the panic beneath the surface. He was just fun. I could have pointed out the irony of her admitting it so easily, now that she was exposed, but I didn't need to. It doesn't really matter now, does it? I said instead, my voice carrying the finality of a locked door. Lucas is gone. Your friends saw everything. Your parents saw everything. There's no coming back from this, Vanessa. You don't get to just say sorry and pretend it didn't happen. I heard her breath hitch. Ethan, I can't lose you. But she already had. I could hear it in her voice, the desperation of someone realizing for the first time that the power had completely shifted. She had spent months deceiving me, laughing at my expense, thinking she had me wrapped around her finger. And now she was the one left begging. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. You lost me the moment you walked into that hotel, I said, my voice steady. You just didn't realize it until tonight. A choked sob. In silence. I could have dragged this out longer, could have let her plead and cry, but I had already wasted enough of my time on her. Without another word, I ended the call. The weight that had been pressing down on me for months was gone. I wasn't just free, I was untouchable. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of messages from mutual friends, all variations of, what happened last night? And dude, you really did that. Word had spread fast, just as I knew it would. Vanessa was ruined, and I was finally done with her. The morning after the fallout was eerily quiet. For the first time in what felt like forever, I woke up without a pit in my stomach, without the nagging voice in the back of my mind telling me something was wrong. The weight I had carried for months, suspicions, doubts, the endless mind games Vanessa played, had disappeared. I stretched, feeling an unfamiliar lightness in my chest. Vanessa, on the other hand, was living in the wreckage. I reached for my phone, not because I wanted to, but because I already knew what I would find. The night before had been the spark, and now the fire was spreading. Unread messages flooded my screen. Some from mutual friends, some from numbers I barely recognized. Dude, holy shit. Vanessa is a mess. What the hell did you do? You're a legend, man. That was brutal. She's trying to do damage control, but no one's buying it. I smirked, scrolling through the barrage of texts. Then the inevitable ones from Vanessa herself. Ethan, please talk to me. You can't just ignore me. I need to explain. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. It was almost laughable. The same woman who had dismissed my concerns, who had gaslit me into thinking I was paranoid, was now begging for a conversation. But there was nothing left to talk about. I tossed my phone onto the nightstand and stood, stretching my arms above my head. Today felt different. No more playing detective. No more watching my words. No more walking on eggshells. I was done. The last piece of this puzzle wasn't just cutting Vanessa off, it was making sure she felt every consequence of her actions. She had spent so much time thinking she was untouchable, weaving lies so seamlessly that she believed her own fiction. But now she was facing something she never anticipated: irrelevance. I showered, got dressed, and stepped outside, feeling the crisp morning air hit my skin. I wasn't going to waste a single second of this newfound freedom. My first stop was my favorite cafe, the one I had stopped going to because Vanessa always had an issue with their coffee. The moment I walked in, I felt eyes on me. People whispered. A few smirked in my direction. Word had traveled fast. The barista, a girl I vaguely recognized from college, grinned as she handed me my drink. That was cold, Ethan. I mean, damn. I raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. What was? She chuckled, shaking her head. Come on. Everyone's talking about it. Vanessa's birthday dinner, the video, the walkout, the fact that she basically imploded in front of half the city. I took a slow sip of my coffee, letting the taste settle. It was perfect. Much better than whatever overpriced garbage Vanessa used to insist on. I said, shrugging. Sounds dramatic. Oh, it was. She's been trying to spin the story, but no one's buying it. She leaned in, slightly lowering her voice. Apparently, she told some people you set her up, that you planned it all just to humiliate her. I couldn't help but smirk. She's half right. She laughed, shaking her head as she handed me my change. Well, whatever you did at work, she's a wreck. And that was the thing about people like Vanessa. They could handle lying. They could handle sneaking around. What they couldn't handle was losing control of the narrative. I walked out of the cafe feeling lighter than ever. But Vanessa, she was unraveling. That much was clear when I saw her name flashing on my phone screen again. I let it ring, debating whether or not I should entertain whatever excuse she had crafted. But then, a different idea struck me. I answered. Silence for a moment, then a sharp inhale. Ethan! Her voice was hoarse, like she had spent the night crying. I leaned against my car, watching the morning traffic pass by. Vanessa, oh, thank God. Look, I know I messed up, but you can't just throw everything away like this. I almost laughed. I was the one throwing things away. That was rich. Vanessa, I said, keeping my tone light. What exactly do you want? I want to fix this. I know I hurt you, but we have something real. You can't just shut me out. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Fix this. How? Are you asking me to forget? No, she said quickly. She hesitated. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. There it was again. That word. Mistake. As if cheating was something that happened by accident. I let out a low hum. So, just to be clear, you spent months lying to me, sneaking around, sleeping with someone else, and now that everyone knows, now you regret it? I always regretted it, she said, her voice cracking. I was scared to tell you. I smirked, watching a couple walk by, laughing as they held hands. You weren't scared, Vanessa. You were just comfortable. Her breath hitched. I love you, Ethan. I closed my eyes briefly. Once, those words might have meant something. Now, they felt hollow. No, Vanessa, I said, my voice calm but firm. You love having me. You love the security I gave you, the way I trusted you. You don't love me. If you did, you wouldn't have done this. She let out a choked sob. Please, Ethan. I exhaled slowly, then smiled. I hope you had a great birthday. Then, before she could respond, I ended the call. This time, I didn't feel anger or heartbreak, just peace. I slid into my car, tossed my phone onto the passenger seat, and drove off, leaving Vanessa behind exactly where she belonged. In the past, the days that followed felt different, lighter. For the first time in months, I wasn't second-guessing myself, wasn't analyzing every word, every late-night absence, every suspicious glance. The weight of Vanessa's deception was gone, and with it, the need to prove anything to anyone. Her messages had finally stopped. The calls, the desperate pleas, the half-hearted apologies, all of it had ceased after I ignored her long enough. I knew Vanessa well enough to understand why. It wasn't that she had suddenly accepted her fate. It was that she had finally realized I wasn't going to give her what she wanted. I wasn't going to fight for her. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into staying. She had lost her power over me, and that, more than anything, was the one thing she couldn't handle. I could only imagine the version of events she was telling people now. Maybe she had tried to paint herself as the victim, claiming I had gone too far, that my revenge had been cruel. But the truth was, Vanessa had built this moment with every lie she told, every time she looked me in the eyes and chose deception over honesty, and now she had to live with it. One evening, as I sat at the bar of a rooftop lounge, sipping a whiskey, I felt a presence settle into the stool beside me. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. Lucas, of course. Cowards like him always showed up when they thought the dust had settled, hoping to rewrite the story in their favor. I took another sip of my drink, letting the silence stretch between us, waiting to see how he would play this. You got me good, man, Lucas finally said, attempting a chuckle that fell flat. Didn't see that coming? I turned my head slightly, raising an eyebrow. That makes one of us. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. He looked exhausted. Whatever he had been expecting when he got involved with Vanessa, it wasn't this. Maybe he had thought it would be a simple affair, an exciting distraction, but now he was carrying the weight of her downfall, and by the looks of it, he wasn't handling it well. You don't have to keep hating me, he continued, signaling the bartender for a drink. It's not like I planned for things to end up this way. I let out a dry laugh, shaking my head. That's the difference between us, Lucas. I don't hate you. You're not worth the effort. That clearly stung more than any insult I could have thrown his way. His jaw tightened, and he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. You think she's done with me? He asked, after a moment, his voice quieter now, almost unsure. I finally turned to face him, fully studying him. He already knew the answer. Vanessa had used him for what he was, an escape, a thrill, a secret, but now that her world had crumbled, she wasn't going to cling to the person who had been part of the destruction. She'll do what she always does, I said, finishing my drink. Find the next best option and pretend none of this ever happened. Lucas nodded slowly, processing my words. He knew I was right. He had been nothing more than a temporary indulgence. And now that the fun was over, Vanessa would discard him like an old dress that had gone out of style. I stood up, placing a few bills on the bar before glancing at him one last time. You should have known better, I said simply, then walked away. As I stepped outside, the cool night air hit my face, and I breathed it in deeply. There was nothing left to hold on to, nothing left to fix. The past was behind me, and in front of me was something I hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility, no more lies, no more games, just a clean slate. And that was the best revenge of all.